Staying organized financially seems easy when life is slow, but when you're in the middle of some of the biggest events in your life, that's when your money habits tend to go out the window. I'm in the middle of a few huge life events right now, so it prompted this conversation around staying organized and feeling in control of your money so that you can enjoy life's biggest moments. Whether you're in the middle of a big life event or just feeling a little out of control financially lately, this episode will be the perfect reset.
I feel like all these financial habits are so momentum is such an important thing with habits in general, but especially financial habits where it's like you're really doing the same things over and over and over again and riding that momentum and building that habit. And so when these big life changes happen, I know that's when I tend to fall off with my finances, even if it's things just like I have a big trip coming up or something big like that I am just getting out of my routine, then I feel like a lot of my financial habits kind of go out the window and it breaks that momentum and then it's really hard to get started again. So I'm glad we're having this conversation because I know a lot of our audiences, mid to late 20s and early 30s, and that is the era of big life changes, whether it's, you're graduating from a master's program or a bachelor's program, or you're getting married or you're moving or you're changing jobs or whatever it may be. Like, I feel like this is the era of big life changes and just times when you can really get off track with your finances. But if you can commit to kind of sticking to some of the habits we're going to talk about in today's episode, you can kind of keep some of that financial stress and anxiety at bay.
Yeah, this episode came because I texted Grace and I was like, I this is something that I've been thinking about so much lately because obviously I'm in the middle of two huge life events, moving and planning a wedding, and transparently my money habits have been so non-existent. Which is exactly what we're talking about in today's episode. Just, I think when life gets crazy, that's when you tend to be spending the most, but that's also when you kind of justify yourself not being in your habits and your routines. You're like, oh, well, I'm moving, so I don't have any of my kitchen supplies. So I'm just going to get takeout for a couple days. But then a couple days turns into a couple weeks. And all of a sudden, you're not paying attention to it. So you're spending like a couple $100s a month just on takeout when you typically don't do that. So I think, yeah, I texted Grace and I was like, maybe we should do a podcast episode just on how to manage and kind of get yourself back to those money habits, or what money habits should you even be aiming to stick to when you're feeling so out of control with your money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great conversation, like I said, and it's relevant for literally everyone's life. Even if you're not going through a big change right now, you likely will at some point. And like you said, it does become a season where you tend to spend more and then you just kind of, your finances hit the back burner and all of a sudden you're tracking your spending at the end of the month and you're like, oh my gosh, like I kind of fell out of routine. So yeah, we're going to talk about 5 different habits in this episode, and some of them are kind of preventative measures and some of them are kind of more reactive or things to make sure that you're just sticking to kind of keep you on track.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you said, even if you're not in the middle of a big life event right now, everybody listening to this is going to have a big life event coming up in the next couple of years or the next couple of months. So some of these can be good to start before you even feel out of control, because it's going to help you so much when everything gets super hectic. So with that, the first one on our 5 money habits list is to set your bare minimum money routine. This is something that I was thinking about the other day because it's the end of June. It was like June 22nd or something. And I realized that I haven't been tracking my spending at all for the month of June. And we moved mid May. So we've just been in the craziness of I still have my townhouse that I'm trying to sell. We just moved into this place. We're buying furniture. We're also planning a wedding on top of that. And I think a lot of habits and routines, not even just money focused, kind of went out the window during that time. But I got to the 22nd of the month and I was like, I have no idea how much money I've spent so far this month. So I sat down to my computer first thing Monday morning and I was like, okay, during this phase, what is actually my bare minimum money routine? What do I need to make sure that I do every month or every week to just really feel in control of my finances and not feel that kind of money anxiety from not knowing? And I think this is a good time to kind of reflect on this on your own. It's not going to look the same for everyone. But for me, my bare minimum money routine is every single week, I need to know how much money I've spent so far this month. So by the end of this bare minimum routine, you should know, okay, it is the 22nd of the month. How much have I spent in total or on groceries, getting takeout because I haven't really been cooking? You need to know those things, or at least I do, to feel in control of your money. The other ones are at the end of every week or at the beginning of the week, whatever day you set for this money routine. Paying off my credit cards is a big one. I don't typically wait until like my due date to pay off my credit card. I typically do it a little bit more frequently throughout the month, but doing it once a week or once every other week just really makes me feel in control knowing, okay, my credit card balances are zero. Like maybe I've been spending a little bit too much, but I am still able to pay off my credit card and I know I'm not going to go into credit card debt. And then the other one for me, the big one is checking in on my savings accounts and my sinking funds and then transferring the money accordingly. So as I'm going through and I'm tracking my spending, and maybe I realize that I spent $2,000 on wedding expenses this week. Okay, well, I'm going to go into my wedding sinking fund and I'm going to pull $2,000 out of it so that when I go to pay off that credit card, the money is there for it. So those are just a couple of things just to kind of like get your wheels spinning on what your bare minimum money routine could look like.
Kind of similar in the sense of my like bare minimum is since I've been tracking my spending for so long, I feel like I kind of have a gauge of like how much I've spent, or I can be like, okay, I notice I'm spending a bit more, so I should probably track more frequently. But my bare minimum is tracking every 2 weeks. And sometimes like same thing. Sometimes I will be like towards the end of the month and realize I made my budget and I haven't tracked a dollar of what I spent. And again, I'm at a point now where I've tracked so much that I kind of can sense when I'm going over budget versus not. And I'm not like I don't go out and just like spend money like constantly. So I know like I probably am not going to go like all the way over budget. But I think that maintaining that routine is really helpful because also when you're in a season where there's a lot of change, you can start to feel like you're just out of control of your life, like as a whole, because there's usually just so many different moving parts. And so, how in that book, Psychology of Money, it talks about how in control of your life you feel is one of the number one indicators of your happiness level. So if you can kind of maintain that control with your spending and, just knowing what you're spending, I think that can help with some of those moving parts. So yeah, definitely when I'm going through a big change or a season of, a lot of things are in flux, I try to make sure that I'm really tracking my spending for sure. And also looking at my savings accounts because I feel like a lot of the seasons I've gone through with a lot of change have come with, like you were kind of saying, a lot like more costly things, like just medical expenses or car. Like I had a bunch of like random car stuff. There's just routine maintenance, but it all fell on the same time frame. It's like just kind of taking a second to check in on your sinking funds and being like, okay, there's a lot going on. Here's like the change that I'm anticipating or what I'm dealing with. And how can I make sure that my accounts are like set up to give me that buffer?
Yeah, I think that segues really well into our second money habit. And this one is a little bit more prescriptive in the sense that it's to plan for future life events now and start saving for them now. Because, yes, it still is a little bit anxiety inducing to like be going through the big life event and feel like you're spending a bunch of money, but it's much more anxiety inducing when you're going through it and you didn't plan for it. Like if I was going through this wedding process and I didn't have a dollar saved for my wedding. Well, like no duh, I'm going to be anxious about it. And then when I do go to sit down and track my spending, I'm going to be even more anxious about it because I'm like, oh my gosh, I spent so much money and I have no idea where the money's going to come from. So I think that when you're in a phase where maybe you don't have a lot going on or you're just kind of like in the routine phases of life, sitting down and really thinking through, what do the next couple of years look like and what do I need to start saving money for? I think it's easy when you're in that routine phase to just say, oh, well, I have a ton of discretionary income right now, but you might not be realizing that next year your car is like on the verge of breaking down and you're probably going to need a new car next year. So you are going to need a down payment for the car, or if you want to try to put down even more cash for the car so that you don't have a car payment. Some other ones are moving. If you are in a lease and you're like, my goal is to get out of this lease in the next year and a half, and I want to move somewhere else. Okay. You're going to need money for moving. Moving is really expensive, as we all know. A wedding, a vacation, a home project, babies are another one. There's so much that is going to come up over the next couple of years when we're in like our mid 20s, early 30s that I don't think that it's good enough to just say, okay, I need to track my spending for now and I need to yeah, maybe throw a little bit of money into a savings account. Like that's great, but what's it for? And that's why we're both such big proponents of the sinking funds to set up like very specific buckets in our savings account so that when the time comes, we have the money there and it's saved so that these kind of like money routines don't have to be as anxiety inducing.
To say it's way more enjoyable when you go through like for example with the car things that I had that were really unexpected. Obviously that wasn't like a life change, but it was like I'm dealing with other life changes And then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, yeah, your battery needs to be replaced." I'm like, "Okay." And then it was like my tires needed to be replaced, like right in the span of like the same month. So between those two things, I probably spent like $1,000 on my car. And it would have been more anxiety inducing amidst all the other change in my life going on if I didn't have the money there, because then I'm like, where am I going to pull that from? Versus I have a car maintenance sinking fund. And I was like, they were like, I looked at my tires and like, oh yeah, they definitely need to be replaced. Let me do this. And he told me the price. And I was like, okay. Same thing. I went in to get a hole patched in my tire. And that's when they told me my battery was like also on its last leg. And I was like, he's like, it's going to be 250. I was like, okay. Like, because I had the money there. And I think that I would rather save like over time and dedicate money towards certain things, even if it's only a little bit each month, because then when you get to the time when you need to pull from that sinking fund, it's just like you have so much relief being like, I have the money there. And that's for all things. Like, it can be for these bigger things like, car maintenance or moving or buying a house or wedding, whatever it may be. But also, like, it could be like your fund sinking fund, whatever you want to save for. But it makes it a lot less anxiety inducing, which is not what you want when you're going through a season of change, to be like, oh my gosh, crap, now I have to worry about the money side of things too.
Yeah, and saving for your friends' big life events too. I know you were just talking about this in a video. I think
Hmm.
about this all the time, but saving for either like attending your friends' weddings or gifts for people. I have a gift sinking fund that I contribute a little bit of money to every single month. And again, it's just a little bit of money, but it does add up over time. And there's so
Hmm.
many things throughout the year that you typically do buy gifts for. Like, for example, my dad just retired. So I wanted to get him a nice retirement gift. Okay. The money was in my gift sinking fund. Or if your friend does get married or has a baby and you have a baby shower to go to, like those big life events, even though they're not yours, since it's not yours, it tends to spring up more like, what's the word that I'm looking for? More impromptu throughout the year, like, oh, you got invited to your friend's wedding. Okay, well, it's in a couple of months and now you need a gift. Or your friend's baby shower. You didn't anticipate that. Now you need a gift. Christmas gifts are the other one. I just think it's about sitting down and thinking, like, what is going to come up that I'm going to want to have money for? Because then that's going to allow you to actually enjoy the thing more in the moment. You're going to enjoy Christmas so much more when you don't have to stress about where the money for Christmas presents is going to. And I think too, when we're talking about like planning for future life events and actually saving the money and putting it into these dedicated accounts, I think that this goes back to point number one in in our money habits, which is to establish your bare minimum money routine. This isn't necessarily like a weekly routine, but this could be a monthly routine. Like maybe you have a routine at the end of every single month, you sit down and you review what was your budget versus how much did you spend? What's the difference between how much you earned this month versus how much you spent this month? And then this is the time to really look at your sinking funds and say, do my spending buckets make sense for what I know I have coming up? I know that Christmas is coming up and it's July and I haven't saved anything for it. Okay, let me make a spending bucket for that. I think like once a month is a good time to just kind of like readjust these and just make sure that there's not something big that you're forgetting about that you're going to want to save in advance for.
Yeah, and your priorities will change too, like as the year goes. Even I was saying in the video that I made on my Instagram that you were referencing about saving for my friends' weddings. In the last month, I was invited to 4 weddings. And like, I know I'm getting invited to a fifth because I've been told that I'm getting invited to this wedding that they just haven't sent the save the date. But I'm like, my gosh, like next year in 2027, I'm gonna have like probably 5 or 6 weddings, like because I know of other people who are getting engaged or are engaged and are just starting to plan whatever. And like I don't have to fly to every single one, but that was kind of like a sudden thing, right? Where in the last month I was like, whoa, okay, I'm going to have a lot of these weddings in the next year. I need to now make that a priority, which means that I need to shift other priorities. So, okay, temporarily, I'm saving less for my future house because that's not a priority for me anymore. And I'm saving more for going to putting it in my travel bucket to be able to attend my friends' weddings and other things that matter. So I think yeah, sitting down whether it's monthly or quarterly and just kind of looking at what are my priorities in the next year, what big life changes am I anticipating and starting to contribute it. I also think too that there's value in looking at it a little bit longer too for like the next like 3 years because for example, I've been saving for a future car for literally, I think it's been like probably 2 or 3 years. I've been setting aside money every single month. My car still probably has another 5 years on it if I want to keep driving it till it falls apart, which I do. But if I started to save to buy my car in cash a year before I need to buy it in cash, I have to contribute, it's like 60 grand. I have to contribute $5,000 a month to that sinking fund. That makes no sense. Versus if I start earlier, I can contribute a little bit at a time. And in the beginning, it won't really feel like it's adding up to anything, but then over time it will. So if you're in a situation where you're like, okay, I'm not anticipating a wedding in the next 6 to 12 months because maybe you're single or maybe you are dating someone, but you're not really like, that's not your timeline with your partner, but you're thinking, okay, in the next 3 to 5, if there are not like pressing things in the next 6 to 12 months that are, coming up for you, you can kind of widen that time horizon a little bit and say, okay, what about the next couple of years, and start contributing little bits to those things too. And that, again, when you get to those moments, having that money there for yourself, like, will give you so much relief.
I think that actually segues really well into our fourth point. I'm going to skip three and we'll get back to that. But our fourth money habit is to automate anything that you can. Because I feel like for a lot of people listening to this, and we're talking about like, okay, saving for vacations, gifts, weddings, moving your car, and then also investing money. That's a lot of different things and a lot of different moving parts. But I know we're both proponents of automating a lot of these things so that you're not spending time or relying on the discipline to physically transfer the $50 a month into your gifts fund or the $100 a month into your car fund. It's super easy to do regardless of what bank you use. I'm sure there's like an automation feature with it. I know the banks that we use definitely have it, but I have a lot of different automation set up for my sinking funds, and it'll go, okay, on the first of every month, I'm going to put $200 a month into my travel sinking fund. That way, I don't have to remember on the first of every month to transfer that money, because I think when you're actually at the point in time, it feels like a lot more than it is to just transfer the money on its own. Like if I were to sit down on the first of the month, I would probably be like, okay, do I really have the $200 to put into my travel sinking fund? It's like, yes, I do, because I track my spending. So I know that I do, but it feels like a lot to physically transfer that money. But if you have all of these automations set up, so at the first of every month, 5 or 6 different things are going into different accounts, over time, that's going to allow you to stick to your financial progress so much more. Even when you have a month where you might not be sticking to your money routines, you're not sitting down to review all of your accounts and track your spending and all of that. You don't have to rely on that discipline to be able to save and invest and stay on track with your financial progress because you've automated it. I feel like when it comes to this is probably the only way that saving for all of these different buckets is actually sustainable, because realistically, how many of us are going to sit down and transfer money into like 7 different savings accounts every single month?
Yeah. I feel like too, when you're going through seasons of like, there's big life events, there's lots of change, whatever it may be, you just like, we always talk about this too when we do episodes on like decision fatigue and overwhelm and stress. Like, we say all the time, like, simplify, like, simplify, simplify, simplify. What can you simplify? And if using automations to kind of simplify that process helps you, then absolutely do it. I don't have any, like, my investments are automated, but I don't have any automated transfers for savings, because I'll like kind of change the numbers for them every month based on like if I have extra in my account and whatever. But I feel like having just like something automated can help, whether that is, again, like a savings or an investment amount or whatever, so that when you are in those seasons, you at least know, okay, I'm still prioritizing this thing. But yeah, I think like it's just, again, it goes back to like, how can you simplify? Because that's really going to help you just like think about everything when the last thing you want to think about in a season of big change and whatever is like what is going on with your finances, if that's going to add like another level of stress. So it's like, yeah, how can you simplify it? Okay, you commit to like your weekly tracking of your spending and you automate what you can so that you're not having to worry about all of those things.
I totally agree. Okay, the next one, this is number 3 on our list, but it's the fourth one that we're talking about. It's to use separate accounts for separate purposes. And this is something that I started doing when I bought my townhouse back in the fall. But now that I'm approaching marriage and joining finances and all of the things, this is something that we're probably going to have to, well, definitely going to have to rework once we merge accounts and all of that. But right now, how I do it is I have 2 different checking accounts at 2 different banks. And one bank, I kind of like split my direct deposit. This is a little bit hard to explain. So I have direct deposit from my employer, which is me because I'm self employed, but I split my direct deposit in my ADP software so that half of it goes to one checking account and half of it goes to another one. It's not like directly 50%, but basically I looked in my budget and I said, how much do my mortgage and all of my bills cost me? And I took that number and I put it into one checking account. And then I have the automation set up so that my mortgage and my bills automatically get paid from that checking account every month. That way, all of that money, I don't have to deal with it. It goes to one checking account. And then the rest of my monthly salary goes into my second checking account. And what that does is just kind of like mentally, it gives you a better picture of like how much money you have to spend on all of the variable things in your budget. I won't say the discretionary ones because like this does include the boring stuff too. Like if I get groceries or if I have a copay at a doctor's appointment or whatever, just anything that's not a set monthly bill goes into the separate checking account. So that's kind of like how I've been doing it for the last 9 or 10 months. And I've really liked that because, like I said, I'm only really depositing like $3,500 a month into the one for variable expenses. So that just like really shows me clear as day, like, okay, that's all the money that I can spend this month on all of the things, right? Between my savings account transfers, all of my fun money, all of my groceries. So it's just kind of like a way to think about it more clearly in your head. They kind of call it the like the digital envelope method. Before this was a thing, people used to literally use like envelopes of cash for things, but now banks are just as good. You can split your money any way that it works. And this is now something that Alex and I are going to have to think through once we do end up like merging our finances, because we'll probably do some sort of like joint but separate system where we have a joint account, all of our household expenses, bills, everything like that comes from the joint account. But then anything left over, we will still put into our personal checking account. So we'll still have that kind of like split direct deposit system. And that's what we're thinking. I feel like when it comes to merging finances in marriage, something that I'm learning is like the system that you set right at the beginning doesn't have to be the system that you stick to forever. What we do in July is going to look totally different than what we decide to do when we have kids and everything like that. Or if one of us stops working for a period because we have kids, like obviously it's going to change. But I think for the time being, at least for the next couple of years, that's probably the system that we'll use.
Yeah, and there's no, like, wrong way to go about it or right way to go about it, like, it's really up to you. I think with I wanted to mention too, I think it's with Ally Bank, they actually have checking buckets, so, like, if you really like the idea of having, like, your sinking funds contributing to things, or you like the idea of having, like, digital envelopes, but you don't wanna have, like, a separate checking account, I believe inside Ally, their checking account allows you to do, like, checking buckets, so you can have, like, little envelopes basically where one is for, like, your rent, one is for, dining out, whatever. So you can kind of create that digital like budget in a way. I haven't used the feature, so I'm not like 100% sure how it works, but I'm like 99% sure that is one of the features in their checking account. And I think that that is really helpful for people sometimes too, where if they have something like that and they have a budget where they're tracking their expenses elsewhere, it becomes almost like two things to do versus if people have those like digital envelopes in their bank app and then they're like, oh, okay, cool. I can just like open my bank app like any time of day and just go in and see how much I have left for these different things. That kind of can simplify the process as well. And I think it's becoming more popular. Feel like a lot of banks are starting to add that feature in.
Yeah, I was ready to say I used to intern at PNC and I know they had that feature too on there, but I
Mm.
really like that. I think that, yeah, like you said, it's during these big life phases, sometimes tracking your spending can feel like just an extra thing, or you're like, oh my gosh, I have so many expenses going on right now. Sitting down to track them is going to be so insane. But if you can organize the money at the root of it, which is in your accounts, if you can organize it correctly, I feel like there's a way to, yeah, like only track half of it. Like when I'm splitting my direct deposit between my mortgage and my bills versus all of my discretionary spending, okay, well, if I only have to track all of the discretionary stuff, that doesn't feel as hard as
Mhm.
tracking everything. I think you can also organize it like this for how you spend money. This is something that Alex and I are thinking about too, as we're starting to think about, joint versus personal, is like, what cards do we spend on? I know for me, I am a little bit all over the place with this right now. I've just like changed the credit cards that I've used so much. But when we do merge accounts, we really want to make it a point where it's like, okay, we have one joint credit card, and then we each have one personal credit card. And like that's it. And obviously, if you're trying to play like the credit card points game, like trying to be strategic about like which cards make the most sense. Like I know that my Amex Gold is going to be our joint credit card because it's so good for like groceries and dining and all of that. But then like what's going to be my one personal card? So I think that there's a lot of room for like simplifying on where you spend as well so that you only have to check one credit card every single month when you do go to track your spending.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good way too to like, even if, you don't have like joint finances, just simplifying in terms of, I know with the way that I track my expenses, I have like three credit cards and I use all three of them because one of them I just like put like a recurring expense on to like keep it active so they don't like close it down. But the other two I spend more actively on them. But then when I go to track my spending at the end of the month, I'm having to copy transactions over from three separate accounts. And obviously that's like I'm having to log into three different things and copy them all over and whatever. And so that can like add more to it. So yeah, simplifying by saying, okay, for the next like, in this season where things are a little all over the place, I'm just going to, spend on this one card and kind of simplify it for yourself is a good way to think about it as well.
Yes. Okay. The last one, I actually really love this one. This is something that I have been doing a lot of recently. It's to optimize the spending that you're already doing. And I feel like when you think about it this way, it's still going back to just like being more intentional with your spending. But what we mean by optimizing the spending that you're already doing is like big life events come naturally with big expenses. So, how can you get something back for those big expenses? One example, obviously, my wedding is coming up. So, I have a lot of wedding expenses. And I opened up a credit card that I've been putting a lot of our wedding expenses on because the credit card has a really good welcome bonus that we're going to use for our honeymoon. I talked about this in a video, but our wedding venue is at an IHG property and they're going to give us 60,000 IHG points just for having our wedding there, which we love because we're spending so much money on the venue. But the credit card that we opened is an IHG credit card and the welcome bonus is 180,000 points. So by the end of our wedding, we're going to have like 250,000 IHG points that we can use to cover the hotel stays for our honeymoon whenever we decide to do one. We still don't know when that's going to happen. But, like, I think that that's just one example of how if you know you have big expenses coming up, you can do something like opening up a credit card, obviously being responsible with it and not paying any credit card interest. But sometimes those big welcome bonuses can make all of these big expenses give you something significant back. Like if you're moving and you know you're going to spend $10,000 between movers, furniture, a house project that you need once you move. Okay, well, if you get a really good welcome bonus and now next year's vacation is virtually free because of that, you probably just earned yourself like two or $3,000 back. Another good example of this is figuring out how you can get cash back for your big expenses. So we've talked about Rakuten a lot on here. It's like a cash back site. The other one that I've been playing around with a lot more is we use ShopMy for our
Mhm.
affiliate links as creators and shopping my own ShopMy links. I do that all
Mhm.
the time now. So yeah, I'm earning like, I don't know, up to like 10% back in some retailers just for shopping my own links. So just being more intentional with your purchases and making sure you're really like squeezing every dollar out of them.
I'm such a Rakuten fan. I like it. You can just install it as a like browser extension. Literally, as we're filming right now in our platform Riverside, you can earn cash back on Rakuten. And like midway through us talking, my little Rakuten thing like popped up because I forgot to like turn it off or whatever before we started filming. It happens like every time we go to film, and I'm like, oh, I forgot again. But I am such a fan because you can install it as a browser extension, and then anytime you go to buy something, if there is cash back available, it will just pop up. If you shop on your phone too, I think they have a like a mobile app that kind of does the same thing. But yeah, I think it's just like good to think about, yeah, how to get more value out of where you're already spending. And if you can think creatively about that, like you said with the points and stuff, like moving, great example. Or if you're having a baby, like the number of baby expenses that are gonna come up, like, and again, we're saying, which if you've listened to the podcast, you know what we're talking, you know what we mean here, but like, don't get a credit card and then put things on it and then don't pay it off. Like, it's if it's like, okay, I have financially prepared, I can afford this big life change, and I want to just try to get a little bit more out of that expense. Okay, I'll put it on, my baby expenses on a credit card and then pay it off in full and get all these points. Or if I am moving, even if it's like, okay, I'm moving across the country and I know that I'm going to have a really expensive flight and some movers, it's like get a credit card and put it on there and then pay that credit card off in full and get those points. But yeah, I think the credit card points are really good kind of tip because it's like, I don't know, if you can manage it responsibly, you can get like a lot of value out of it with the welcome bonuses versus obviously Rakuten is really great, but it's going to get you maybe like 5 to 10% cash back on something that you purchase, you know?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the cashback sites, it's about remembering that it's not about spending more. It's about getting something back for the spending that you were going to do
Mhm.
already. Like, don't download Rakuten and then scroll through Rakuten every day, just like
Yeah.
seeing what you can buy. That's not the point. And I think that's how those sites like still operate because they figure that people are going to buy more than they typically do so that you can afford to give them cash back. But especially around the holidays, Rakuten does like insane cash back deals. They have so many retailers that it'll be like 15% cash back. So I feel like, especially when you're thinking about gifts too, like how can you earn a little bit back for yourself for the gifts that you already have to buy? And Rakuten's a fun one too because I think you just keep the money in your account until you decide to withdraw it. Like it's not going to pay you every single month, like the $20 that's in your account. So you can wait until you have like $500 in there or something and use that almost as your kind of like fun money sinking fund for, okay, once I get $500 in cash back from the shopping that I was already going to do, then I can buy myself the Breville that I've been looking at or that kind of like fun splurge purchase. So that's just another one that we've been thinking of lately for how to optimize the spending that you're already doing. But I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. We wanted this to be just like kind of a quick and easy one because now you have a bunch of money habits that you need to go implement. But let us know in Spotify if you do any of these or any other money habits that really help you when you're in a season of life where there's just a lot of change and you have a lot of things going on and you feel like your finances are all over the place. Because, again, like we said at the beginning of this episode, it really is just about being in control and feeling really in control with your money so that you don't feel anxious about it. But with that, thanks for tuning into the podcast. And until next week.